Do you want one?
Yeah.
And that one mine. Oh, that's nice wine.
Cheers, Gramps.
Well, my name is Al Armitage, and I was born of Scottish parents in Shotts in Lanarkshire, and came down to England when I was only a few weeks old, which accounts for the fact that I have no Scottish accent whatsoever. I went to a primary school in Hornsey in London, and from there, when I got to what is now sort of GCE level, I then went to Hornsey County School, which was a secondary school, and then later during the war, when the bombing was so bad, we went out of London, and I went to Reigate Grammar School, which was a very well-known school, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. When I got to the end of my secondary school, I left school, and of course it was during the war, and because I knew I'd be called up within 12 months on my 18th birthday, I just took a job in an office, which I didn't enjoy, but I got called up and went into the Royal Air Force. And I so enjoyed my life in the Air Force. I very nearly signed on. But anyway, I did a year's course at Melksham, a specialist course on instruments, and came out as an AC1 instrument repairer, and was sent immediately on embarkation leave and sent out to Malta. And that's where I met my great friend Ivan Flynn, who I'll tell you about in a minute. I went into, it was a transport station, and I walked into a Nissan hut, and there was only one bed empty right at the very end, and I went and took it and unloaded my gear, said hello, my name's Al, and he said my name's Ivan, and we took to each other straight away and became great friends. 3 weeks later, he was posted to Castelveneto in Libya. So I thought, oh, there goes that friendship. But 2 weeks after that, I was also posted to Castelveneto. And I walked, when I asked where is the instrument section, they said, well, there's only one room, it's the M1 in that corner. So I walked down, knocked on the door and walked in. And there's Ivan reading the Times of Malta. So I said, well, fancy meeting you again. And we have been absolutely the best of friends ever since. Well, when I met up with Ivan again in Castelveneto, we were both Group 1 instrument repairers, which is the very highest you can be. And so we decided we would make a snags team, because Castelveneto was what's the word? Where planes come in to carry on to somewhere else. I forget the name now. And very often we used to have we had a Dakota that was the area Dakota, and that came in 3 times a week, brought the Sunday newspapers and the daily newspapers, and so we always used to raid those and make sure we got the first copies. And then if a plane came in that had, let's say, an automatic pilot snag, which was a very complicated system, or a direct reading compass snag, which is an amazing compass, we would spend all night together working on it until we got it right. And sometimes we didn't finish till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And so we just became the very best of pals. As we always worked together as a team, we also did our guards together as a team. And we were on night guard one day, and the Castelveneto was shared with BOAC. They had a hangar of their own where they had a canteen and you could eat there and pay for your meals, and we often used to do that. We were walking up the runway just after a Lancastrian took off, which was a civil version of the Avro Lancaster bomber, and we heard a great clank, and we walked up the runway, and the hatch from the belly of the plane had dropped on the runway, and it just went off without it. So we picked it up between us, walked into the BOAC hangar and said, "We think this is yours," and put it down. He said, "What do you mean you think it's mine?" They said, "But it just dropped off that Lancastrian that's taken off." So we had egg and chips and then went back to bed. When we were demobbed, both our wives... Oh, he was my best man when I got married. He was already married. He was best man at my wedding. And our wives got on ever so well together. We had lots of holidays together, including a fantastic holiday in California. But Joyce died, my wife, died in 2004 on Whit Monday, and his wife died 5 months later in November 2004. And so we still just meet up every month without fail for at least one lunch or twice for 2 lunches. And we go on holidays together, we just do everything. We go to shows together, we do everything together. Well, now I'd like to go back to my school days because it was during the war and daylight raids were quite common over London, and when the sirens went we had to get down on our hands and knees underneath our desks until the all clear went. And we could hear bombs dropping and we could hear the anti-aircraft fire at the enemy aircraft, and we just had to wait it out, sometimes for an hour. And the other thing was that I always remember seeing high in the sky, perhaps 40,000 feet, great fleets of American bombers going over to Germany, daylight raids. And all you could see was the trails that they were leaving. You couldn't even see the aircraft. But they must have given Germany a hell of a battering, those daylight raids. Early on, my sister, my brother, who are both younger than me, and myself were all evacuated to Wisbech. And I went to the Wisbech Girls' Grammar School, which was very nice for us.
No qualms with that one.
No qualms with that one. And eventually finished up my education there. My sister, who was billeted with an old couple in a cottage, actually had 2 bombs dropped in the back garden of the cottage.
Yeah.
And I went straight over as soon as I heard it to see if she was okay. And she was out there just looking at the damage to the outbuildings. So she went from London to escape the bombing and got it in the back garden of the cottage she was living in. My brother led a very untoward life, and that really accounts for our education period.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
When I finished my education, my mother, who had been a nurse, was very friendly with a couple whose babies she had delivered, and her eldest son was director of a steel company in London. And he was looking for a new member of staff and spoke to his mother and said, "Well, of course, young Armitage is looking for a job." So he said, "Oh, well, I'll give him a ring. Give me his number." And he rang me and said, "Could you come and see me on Monday morning?" And I went, and he offered me a job, £1 higher a week than I was already earning. And I knew him from a long time ago because he used to run a baseball team, and I used to go and watch them play. And I started in the works office, moved into sales, and became very interested in export sales. And in no time at all, within a year or 18 months, I was made the export sales manager. And I stayed there right to the end of my career and had a marvellous time. I used to get sent to Portugal. I mean, I had a lot of business in Portugal. One year I went 5 times in 1 year. And the place I always wanted to go to was Istanbul. But Doug, my boss, loved Istanbul, so he always went to Istanbul and I never got the chance. And the other place I would like to have gone to was Hong Kong. But the chairman of the company, the owner of the company in Birmingham, loved Hong Kong and he used to go there every year. So I never got to Hong Kong either. But nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the work. It was a real joy to go to work in the morning. I looked forward to going to work, and not many people can say that. My brother decided he would go into the RAF, and he signed on for 12 years and was sent to South Africa. And I didn't see very much of him for years, really. And my sister, who dearly wanted to be a midwife, was too early to even start training as a nurse. She was about 16 or 17, and the earliest you could apply was 18. So she went to a place called Chailey, which I think is in Sussex, where they had a children's home, where they took in children who'd lost their parents, battered children, all children with disabilities, and she did about a year there and thoroughly enjoyed it. And when she left, she applied straight away to the Royal Free Hospital as a nurse. She was interviewed and accepted, and that was in the day when the Royal Free Hospital was in Gray's Inn Road. Now they've moved much further out. But she did all her training there, did 3 years and got her state registered nurse. And then she thought, well, I want to do midwifery, so I'd better be a state certified midwife. So she applied to another hospital, and I forget which one it was. It was in the London area. So she did her state certified midwife, and then she thought, well, I've got 2 degrees now. If I go to Moorfields for 2 years and get the ophthalmic nursing degree, then I can go anywhere in the world, anywhere I like, and I'll always get a job. And so she applied and she was accepted, and every year they give a prize called the Moorfields Cross to the highest qualifier, and the Moorfields Book Prize to the second highest qualifier. And she won the Moorfields Cross. And in the family somewhere, and I think she's got it, is a lovely picture of her being presented with the cross by Madam Pandit, who was Pandit Nehru's wife, who was on a visit to this country, and Moorfields asked her if she would come to the hospital and present the prizes, which she did. And of course, in those days, they wore these big white squares bound round the head and tied, and then flared out behind. And it really is a lovely picture. But Irene went down to South Wales and met a farmer, and they fell in love, decided to get married. Irene had always wanted to live in Jersey, and so she went to Jersey before their wedding to find out if she could get a job and to see what prospects there were for him getting a job. Well, straight away, the St Helier General Hospital offered her a job. They said, if you want to do midwifery, do you want to do the district or in hospital? She said, well, I'd like to do the district. They said, well, you must do a year in the hospital first to make sure that we know that you're okay with what you're doing. and she did that, and then she went on the district, and as a result she knows every tiny little lane in Jersey, much better than most Jersey people know. And she also applied to the agricultural college in Jersey, and they wanted a general foreman. So they said, well, when you come over here, ring us and we'll have him in for an interview. So he went for the interview when they arrived there, and they gave him the job on the spot. And so they both went there absolutely out of the blue, both got good jobs and were perfectly happy there, and stayed there right until Toby died.
Okay.
The first time I flew to Jersey with Paul, my daughter Sally, drove me to Elstree Airport, where he had a house in Elstree at that time, and he came in, we watched him land. We'd had lunch at the airport cafeteria, and he came across and he said, I'm Paul, are you ours? I said, yes, and this is my daughter Sally. So he said, well, I'm just going to have a sandwich and a beer and then we'll go. So he had a sandwich and a beer, and he opened the locker. He said, give me your luggage, threw it in, closed the locker, and he said, if you want to wave goodbye, it's on a hillside, and the runway is just a strip of mown grass, which is very soggy down at the bottom end. So he said, if you walk over to the edge of the grass, I will come as close as I can and you can wave goodbye to each other, which we did. And, you know, it was just marvellous. Well, I've jabbered on for quite a while, but I think I've told you everything that's of every importance to you. And so just say cheers, and that's it. Happy days.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Yeah.
That's what we say in the business.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grant.